Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of No Cover TV's podcast. That's right, I'm your host, Big Al, and I bring you the original local and national music scene from all over, not just in America anymore from being on TV. I'm all over the world. And you can't get rid of me. You just can't get rid of me. So I am going to take that original music, whatever genre it is, age group, and I'm going to shove it in your face, and you're going to listen to it. I would like you to please turn the radio down once in a while and quit listening to all the classics, because there's better classics, I feel, out there in the original music scene. Lots of great music out there, so listen and support your local and national artist out there. They're doing this because they love what they're doing, and they also do it because they love to put a smile on your face. That's what they love to do. So support them by purchasing their swag, going to the shows, pay that cover charge. Get whatever you can, their digital downloads. It's great nowadays because we have the platforms. It's not like it was back a long time ago, which we might get back into talk about a little bit with my guest here today. And, you want to get a hold of me to get on the show, get a hold of me through Facebook. No Cover TV's Facebook page or my personal page, Al Brady. Instagram, No Cover TV 1. That's Instagram. Or you can get a hold of me at nocovertv@yahoo.com. If you do, email me. So get a hold of me. Let's get your music and your story out there because, like I said, we are around the world and everybody's listening to your story because they want to know. They want to know what you're about. And then they're going to listen to your music. So we're not going to hold off much longer. We are going to talk to today's guest. Today's guest, I'm just thrilled to have him with us today. He is a country singer-songwriter, and not only is he a country singer-songwriter, this gentleman is an icon and a legend in the country music business. This gentleman's name is Mark Brine. How you doing, Mark?
Well, Big Al, I'm surviving it. That's about it.
You survive. That's all we can do, brother. Yes, we can. So,
trying to, anyway.
Right. Wow.
It's good to be with you today.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I really look forward to it, having you on. I really do. And we're going to have some fun.
I'm looking forward to it, too.
Good. So, you're hailing out of the Maryland area, sounds like.
I am located there now. Yeah, I'm not originally from here, but my wife's from here, so
okay.
I've been living here a good while.
All right, you've been living there a while, so you've have been in the business for quite some time now. I've been doing this 40 years. I want to say you've probably been doing it a little longer than I have.
Well, I started professionally, working at like 13 years old. So it's been well over 60 years, I guess that'll be. 60
years. 6 years. We have a lot to cover, Mark, in 60 years. I hope we can get this all in. Oh, my goodness. So let's do that. I do this with all my artists. I put you on a time capsule, and we're going to go back to when you were 13 years old. Well, let's go back to 12.
I started playing guitar at about 10.
10? 10?
But I had, my dad had a tenor guitar, which was like a 4-string guitar. They don't make a whole lot of them anymore. But,
no.
And he tried to teach me when I was younger than 10, but I didn't. But I just couldn't pick it up, too impatient or whatever. But I was very familiar with music because I had an aunt and an uncle that really, turned me on to a lot of the old Hank Williams stuff.
Right.
My uncle, Hank Williams and Roy Acuff and all that, which he was very big on, and my aunt was very much into the rock and roll, so I was very familiar with Buddy Holly and Elvis and all those.
Beautiful.
Going on rockabilly. Yeah,
that's great.
So I was familiar with it. I just wasn't, patient enough to sit down. But until I got my first guitar, then I started really taking it serious and getting into it. I was about 10 at the time. 10 at the time.
What was that first guitar? What was that?
It was a Silvertone.
Silvertone.
Yeah, it was like from Sears,
Yes.
It was like what they call an F-hole, you know.
Yeah.
It was, I think they use them a lot more in jazz, you know, than anything. But
Boy.
yeah, it was a you know, acoustic F-hole
Exactly.
guitar. Yeah.
So you self-taught yourself.
You know, at first I did try to read in the books, you know, like the Mel Bay kind of thing back then.
Right.
And I had, I never was able to really learn how to read music. You know, I think the first one I was able to figure out, probably from the help from my father, you know, was Old Black Joe, which I really loved that tune, and you know, I learned to play the actual notes to it, you know,
Really?
you know, the melody line.
Yeah.
But I've never been really super good at melody. You know, I got into chords, you know, and more in playing, you know, like you know, getting a lot of chord books, you know,
Right.
some that I still have today that I marked off back then. You know, learning chords, you know. And,
That's great.
It wasn't really, the first group I got in, I did become the lead guitar player, you know, playing lead kind of guitar. It took me a long time until I kind of hooked up with here in Lightning Hopkins, and for some reason it just came together playing blues, you know, for that, you know,
Right.
listening to Lightning, but not really copying him, you know, in the sense of, like, I could never really, you know, play anything straight off of a record. I mean, unless it was very simple.
Yeah, right. I agree.
And Lightning was not simple, but I could always kind of tick along with him and kind of get these ideas that kind of were familiar, you know.
That is amazing.
Yeah. When I seen him do it on, like, a TV show he did back on PBS, some of the songs that I had been learning and everything, I noticed that it was like a whole different key and different hand, you know, so it's never like I actually copied exactly, but, you know, I had a groove for it. So
right, your style. Now, 13 years old, you started a rock band and you're lead guitar at 13. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. That's pretty amazing, Mark. And
yeah, well, you know, I had a you know, friend that was a singer that was with us, and he has passed on since, you know. But he was like the first kid I ever met in my life as a real youngster, you know, a lot younger than that.
Right.
And you know, he became the singer for the group, you know, like, and there was another guitar player.
All right.
We kind of started out like that, you know, like practicing, the three of us, and then we got like a bass player, and then eventually a drummer, you know. But it was you know, kind of it took a little time to put it together, you know. But that's about when we started, you know, like, and we started playing at dances and stuff, you know.
That's where you got to start, at somewhere like that.
Yeah,
but
yeah, you know.
But didn't you get a local label to sign you?
We did a record for Lightfoot Records.
Yes.
And it was owned by a guy named Gordon Lightfoot, but he was not the Gordon Lightfoot that everybody knows.
Darn.
He was a country singer.
Okay.
He had a song about a drugstore cowboy or something. A drugstore romance, I don't know, but he did own a label, you know.
Okay.
And that label was Lightfoot Records, and initially that was like probably around we were a good bit older. I mean, we were together for almost 4 or 5 years, and you know, towards the end of it, we recorded, you know.
Right.
And what happened was, you know, we paid for the first record, but after the session, he signed us to do 6 more songs, you know, with the label, 6
Beautiful.
recordings. But we never got to doing them because the group broke up within, you know, with about a 6-month period after the record came out, you know.
That's not good. That's not good. But now, what I want to know is, you were playing rock and roll and stuff and playing lead guitar, but then you kind of switched it up to a little bit of folk country. What happened there? What did we decide to do there?
Well, you know, the group that I was in after the first group was like a trio. It was like, you know, and I say, you know, it was really not rock and roll particularly. I mean, we were more into blues originally,
Sure.
The first group was much more like we're doing like Midnight Hour by, I forget the guy that did that, but Midnight Hour and a lot of Rolling Stone stuff and the blues stuff,
Yes, the early stuff.
So we got doing a lot of that, but then the next group was the next step up was when you had Jimi Hendrix and the Cream come along,
Oh, yes.
and we got into heavier stuff then.
Oh.
But after that group lasted for about a year or two, and when it broke up, I tried to join these other groups, and I got but I didn't. Was never happy with it. It was like I was just like a hired lead guitar kind of thing.
Okay.
And I just got tired of, as a writer and everything. I had been writing with this first kid from 1964. We had been writing songs for the first group.
Wow.
And I've been writing a long time, and it was like every time I'd give them to people, they just kind of chop them up and all that, not sing right. I finally started just folk singing, like going around to the coffee houses and playing, open mics and stuff and doing that kind of thing,
Cool.
So that kind of led me, but, I had originally, like I say, been big fan of Hank Williams as a boy, and
yes.
So when I would go to coffee houses, I've been doing a lot of those kind of songs like that, more like in the countryish vein, which led me back into doing, more country kind of band,
Bless Hank Williams. That's, I'm sure. That's great. Now, 74 changed. You took a move to Nashville, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. How was that? That sounded like it worked out pretty good for you.
Well, I had a country group up in New England that we were playing, and everywhere we went, we'd do these old country songs like Hank Williams and those kind of things, like Roy Acuff and that style stuff.
Right.
And kept on getting fired, the people at the clubs would really like it, they'd say, oh, why we don't get to hear this that much, but every club owner, would call up the agent the next day and we get fired, because we never get a chance to come back. And what the comment was, we want country music, we don't want hillbilly music.
No.
Finally I said to myself, look, if I'm going to, I might as well go where they really play it. That was what that pursuit was. And also, like I said, because I was into writing, so I figured it was, and I figured when I got down there, I started searching out people like, Roy Acuff. I went with a recommendation for Buzz Whitaker.
Oh, good.
At the Lone Star Ranch.
Yeah.
To see Roy Acuff, and I did. I went to his house and left the thing, but I didn't leave a tape or anything, and he just called me up and said, well, you got to hit Music Row and do, the foot thing and, find somebody. So
that's great.
And I did. I had to, that's basically what I did for about a year or so. I got very lucky to get opening spot playing, opening up with the band at Tootsie's Orchid Lounge.
Ooh.
Which was the best club you could get a gig like that at on Lower Broad.
That is something else. You change things up around 85 and stuff like that. But what I think is really cool, though, back, 92 or so, your single New Blue Yodel, Hank Snow heard it. And he brought you on the Grand Ole Opry to perform it.
Yeah, I got to debut on there with his band, with the Rainbow Ranch Boys.
Yeah.
I had, by that time I had been out in Nashville for like 6 years or so, when he called me. It was like 6, 7 years. I had, left there. I was recording at the time out in New York.
Okay.
And I had been on 2 record labels in Nashville, and they were trying. I didn't go to Nashville to become like an outlaw, I went there to do the older stuff, and hopefully revitalize it. Now, not to be or copy them particularly, but, you know, kind of like Dylan did with Woody Guthrie. You know, you take it the next step, you know.
Right.
That was my intention, was to learn all that,
nice.
you know, the traditional stuff, and, you know, and then take it, you know, write stuff that was, you know, like a carry-on of it, you know, carry it on, you know.
Right.
But, you know, I'll be honest with you, Tootsie was basically the only one that I actually understood. Most of the places I went to just laughed me off, said, you know, we don't do that kind of country here, you know, basically. You know, that's the truth. And it was really a rude awakening. I went down there thinking that they would be the ones where to be
accepted. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't ignorant to the fact that people like Chris Christopherson and all that and Waylon were making it. I knew that, you know, I wasn't like ignorant to it.
Right.
But I just, you know, that was more the, like, my thoughts was like, try to bring it back, you know, the older style, stuff like that, you know, and mix it with what you're doing. But then I got, like within about a year and a half or so, I got hooked up with Doorknob Records, which was, you know, I was writing for them, and then became like a roster artist, where, you know, roster is when you're on the label kind of thing, not custom where you pay for it.
Exactly.
I was with them and did some recordings. But I really was never too satisfied with having to use these studio players, you know, because don't get me wrong, they're great players. But that wasn't what I was searching for. I wasn't trying to become, like I say, an outlaw. I mean, you know, that was the style they were all trying to copy, you know, basically.
Yeah.
And so I you know, I quit it. I mean, I left the label, and then I eventually got another label that was even a worse deal.
Oh, no.
And I mean, you know, but I was getting like a writer's, you know, like royalty advance kind of thing.
Oh, yes.
And it was paying my rent. So I stayed with them and recorded like a bunch of songs with them, but about 13 songs or something, I think it did, the studio.
Okay.
And, but, you know, finally, the guy was just driving me crazy. I hate to say it, but he just, you know, he's a nice guy, but he just, you know, they just try to make you into Kenny Rogers. I didn't go there to Kenny Rogers, you know, whatever. You know, so I finally said, you know, I'm getting out of here. And it's funny because the last guy said to me, he said, you know, you're going up there and, you know, you ain't going to be able to, you know, this guy, he made a negative comment about the town where I was going. Said, well, you know, and then, like, you know, like 5 years later, he wrote me a Christmas card and said, you were the smart one, you got out of here. So, anyway.
That's beautiful. You're the smart one, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, right. And it's funny because I ask most of the artists, you know, would you want to be with a label or would you rather be independent? And pretty much 85% want to stay independent right now. They want to have full control of everything. But if the right, you know, label comes along, I guess they would sign.
Sure, yeah. Well, you need that, you know. I mean, fortunately, when I got up to Maryland, which is where I'm in, I still am, but anyway, neither here nor there, you know, I would start concentrating on New York, and I got extremely blessed, and I say blessed because I don't believe in luck. I met Tom Pomposello, which Tom was like a bottleneck blues player, but he was also working with MTM and all these whatever, I can't think of, the Dang Nangs, all them companies. I mean, he was doing their TV plugs, you know, like their, he had that one where they had the doo-wop come down for, you know, that doo-wop ad for, I think it was, I forget the name.
I can't think of that.
I'm having a moment, but, you know, he was doing some big stuff, but he was also a bottleneck blues guitar player that had learned from Mississippi Fred McDowell, and he was very keyed into the folk scene up there, the right people and everything. He was a member of the Blues Society in Memphis, like he was on the board. You know, he had a lot of these, other connections that he was doing, and he recorded me, and that was the record that allowed me to basically be myself. But I did a tribute to Jimmy Rogers, the father of country music.
Nice.
And but still, like it was my own writing to that style. And then the flip side was an old Fred Rose song and everything. It was closer to what I wanted to do. Not that it was particularly every bit of it. I wasn't trying to become another Jimmy Rogers song. I just was, a tribute to him.
Right.
Anyway, to make a long story short, that's the one that Hank Snow heard, and he invited me to do the Opry.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Mark, I love your style. I really do. I think it's really unique, and I want everybody out in podcast land, get on your devices, computer, whatever gizmos you use to listen to music. I want you to look up Mark Brine, B-R-I-N-E, and I want you to play some of his music. You're going to love this, because we're going to talk about a couple songs and a few here, but I got a few other questions. Well, I got a lot of questions, okay? Let's talk about how many CDs over the years have you put out?
I'm thinking.
Can you count that high?
20 or so.
20?
So maybe less, maybe 15 to 20, somewhere in there. I haven't sat and counted.
Enough, right?
Yeah, enough.
Enough.
Exactly.
No more studios. That's funny.
Well, I'm sitting on a couple that I could put out right now, but there's nobody buying CDs, and I am going to hopefully put one out soon again. But
I hope you do.
Just because you need them for the radio and stuff to send around. But
right.
The people just ain't buying the download nowadays.
They're downloading. They are, and some. I've noticed some people are wanting albums now. People are starting to press albums again. So, but what do you think about nowadays with all these platforms and the computer age versus 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago when you didn't have that? You had to make posters up and make cassettes and this and that and do the footwork. What do you think of all the platforms being able to put your music up there and let everybody hear it?
Well, Miguel, I'll tell you what. In one way, it's better for the independent, but in another way, let me just throw this example out to you. Okay,
sure.
Back in the 70s, like the late 70s, I had a Class B Muzak cut, which was a song that was recorded by Peggy Sue and Sonny Wright, which was like they were on the same label that I was on.
Yeah.
And they did a duet version of the song. But it never was issued because they left the label before they got to it. They did like 40 songs in the studio. I can't even remember the amount, but they did all these songs in the studio, and it never got around to mine, so to speak, But Muzak liked it because somehow or other they put the music through these computers that tells of certain colors that expresses certain moods, okay?
Okay.
So anyway, the long story is it ended up coming out as a Class B Muzak, which means that the record was never issued. It was just strictly the music you hear it.
Just the music.
And I heard it in malls and all these different places, Burger King one time.
Oh, really?
But, yeah, I was making a couple $100. I'm just grabbing this as one example, okay?
There you go.
One example of making money. I used to make a couple $100 for about 10 years straight like that.
That's beautiful.
That cut, okay?
Nice.
Now,
I like it.
And then when I had the New Blue Yodel in the thing got me on the Opry and all that stuff. I got a lot of airplay with it and everything. I made like $100. Okay,
$100, huh? What?
So you tell me, what, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do. I really do.
A couple hundred for 10 years, right, until it went international, and then it kind of slowed down.
Right.
Okay, and then like 10 years later than that, okay, I guess. So you tell me why that would make sense. If you have a double Grammy nominated song.
Yeah, and you get $100 for it. Yeah, that does not make sense.
A total of $100. Yes. You tell me that so basically, I have absolutely no trust in either of the clearance houses, and I won't mention their names, but everybody knows them.
I know who you're talking about.
I don't know where the money's gone. I could tell another story about that, but I don't think you want to.
Me and you got to talk offline, I think.
I don't want to get in any trouble with it. But I'm just speaking the truth, and the truth is not like today.
I tell some of the newer bands, you build that base of that tree, but build it strong because there's a lot of branches, and if you veer off on some of those branches, you're going to run into some people that might have a big smile and be nice to you, but boy, they got some other intentions for you. And believe me, I'm still pulling those knives out of my back. And
I hear you. I mean, and now when I was just saying was in the 90s, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, we're talking like almost 30 years later, right? I mean, roughly, and you think it was bad then? I mean, no matter how much play you get on these things, I mean, you're lucky if you see. I mean, it's just, don't get me wrong, but, it's just, they have done a number on the business,
They really have. They really have. That's why a lot of the bands want to stay independent. It's kind of, screw you guys, pretty much, is what they're telling everybody. But let's get back to you. I see that you've got quite a bit of fans that love you. How you liking that?
Well, I appreciate that. I deeply appreciate people that
sure do.
Find interested in my music, and all that. I really do. And, really that's what it's all about ultimately in the end. It's not, it's not what money you're going to make out of it. It's really if you can, influence, not necessarily influence, but, be enjoyed by that. And maybe, I grew up like in the 60s, and a lot of the music had messages to it,
Yeah,
And I really related to that. So it's affected my writing and what I do. And so, you put these sort of underlying messages in everything you write. I mean, pretty much everything you write. You can't hit it in everything. And, you hope that it will have an effect on people, that's really what artists have done throughout history. It's like create like social change or whatever you want to call it, but to do it in an underlying way, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and your songs, you tell great stories that hit home. I mean, you brought me back to when I was a young man, and I can just remember being out on the farm and stuff like that, and the music just hit home. I loved it, Mark. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. What I think that like my intentions with country music, when you say country, I've kind of always sort of say, I guess I started my career solo-wise in folk, so I always kind of vision all that as folk music, and even Hank Williams called it folk music. I mean, that's what it is. All of a sudden the folk boom happened, and it, became very divided because of political stuff, but that's a whole other issue, okay?
Right.
But the point is that the, to me, country music, like, or any country, is rural. It's rural. It's not, when you listen to it, you envision things in the country. I mean, you imagine, music kind of makes your imagination go,
It sure does.
And I don't get that from the new country. What I get from the new country is basically cityfied, like Hollywood glitter stuff. Like
you're telling a story.
People going to get the Grammys, half naked and the whole thing. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I know, and I
don't
hate
get
it.
anything country out of that. I mean, you can stick a banjo in there. You could stick maybe a mandolin, like on a pop song,
Right,
but I still don't get the image, you know what I'm saying? When I listen to Roy Acuff, I get the image, or Hank Williams, Hank.
Yes,
indeed.
Oh, God.
That's what I'm talking about. For me, what country means to me, it doesn't mean Nashville and the whole thing. I mean, that's all.
Nashville's changed. Yes, I have quite a few artists in Nashville that are signed, and it's more of a country pop song type music stuff down there. And they're doing their thing, and it's working for them, I guess. But what you're doing is so unique. It needs to be heard. So everybody around the world, and I mean around the world, get on your devices and check out Mark Brine. You're going to kick back, and you're going to love this. You're going to love this music here. Now, I want to ask a couple questions. One big question I like to ask. Now, you've been doing this, we'll say 60 years, okay, since you were 13 years old. Oh, my goodness. When you get on that stage, you strap on that guitar and you start playing and everything, and you start seeing that crowd get up and start dancing, singing your songs, how's it make Mark's heart feel?
Well, it's funny because when I first started singing, I was terrified. That's why I started out as a guitar player, because I was always kind of the introspect kind of kid, and
right.
And the guy that was singing, he was, very extrovert, and he loved the attention of that. It was hard to me. It took me about 10 years, but I'll tell you what, after I went through that agony of it, and believe me, it is, but if you love something and you really, no matter what kind of fear or whatever you have to deal with in life, or, you fight it and you win. I mean, that's what we're called to do. And, I love performing. I don't have to be making a lot of money at it. I just love performing. I love being up there and doing it,
Yes.
So I hope that when people are there, they're dancing or these things that you say, listen or whatever, I hope they're enjoying it. That's all. But I'm probably the most critical person of my own self.
Aren't we all?
So I don't know that, all I know is I enjoy it. But beyond that, I figure if I enjoy it, maybe they will too. That's about it. Well, I just love performing. I live for it,
Great. Now, how can the people out in podcast land get a hold of you, possibly get maybe a CD or swag, or get to talk to you? You have any platforms, Facebook page, anything?
Well, my website, is www.markbrine.com, and that's MarkBrine, all one word. And if you go to that website, there's a store page that's to the far right, and you can hear my songs all the way through for free. I mean, you can download them from there if you want, but also the fact I don't put up samples, I figure, if they're gonna, you want to hear the whole song, because the ending might not be very happy.
Right, exactly.
So I put them up all the way, and you can hear them for free. All my albums and my recent singles, which I've put out, are there for free to hear. It's on the store page. It sounds like just money store, but it's really free listening, and there's videos there and all that stuff.
That's beautiful.
And if they want to purchase them, they could.
Great.
And there's a contact page too if they want to write to me.
All right, good deal. So go to www.markbrine.com. Check them out. Check out everything. Do you post where you're playing out at venues and stuff on there?
I don't. I'll tell you why I don't do that, because I don't. I'm lazy about it. and not only that, but I used to do that. Like have a thing about that. But I'll be honest with you, I don't. I just getting into the page and working on all that. I have to get other people to do it, because I'm kind of like computer illiterate,
Yeah, I get it.
So I just kind of let that go. I gotta admit, I'm terrible with that. I just really am. I try to post on Facebook where I'm playing. If it's a private event, I don't even bother. But if it's a public thing, I'll put it up on Facebook.
There you go. Well, at least get it on Facebook. That's good enough for everybody. Yeah. So check Facebook out on Mark Brine.
Well, mostly that's where people are going to find that stuff.
They are.
Don't get me wrong. The websites were really big, like in the 80s, I guess 90s, maybe 90s, I suppose 90s, and the early 2000s, you know.
2000s, yeah.
But really, in a way, people ain't even making them anymore. I notice a lot of businesses, they're not even bothering with that. They're just going straight to like Facebook kind of. That's where people are going anyway. I mean, so, you know, that's basically where I put it up. You know?
Yeah, there you go. Good deal. Now, I want to ask you a couple questions here. Now, you've played on a lot of stages in your time and stuff, even the Grand Ole Opry. But what stage would you dream of wanting to play on? What stage?
Again, you mean like or
what in the world? What stage in the world would you want to perform on in front of hundreds of thousands of people? Where would you want to play?
Well, I'd love to go back to the Opry.
The Opera.
I mean, obviously, I'll tell you the truth, and I've played a lot of places, but when I played there, I was terrified. You know, I mean, it was the first time playing there. You know,
That's
I mean,
the Grand Ole Opry.
Hank Snow was very cool. I mean, he's a great guy. I mean, a lot of people misunderstood him, but you know, he got me booked on the Friday night Grand Ole Gospel, which was recorded after the show ends, which means that there's still people in the auditorium, but you know, and it's the gospel show, and you go out, you do a spiritual number, you know, whatever.
Right.
But anyway, that broke a little bit of the anxiety going out there, okay, like on Friday, because there's not as many people. And then Saturday, you know, I did the two shows, you know, and he had also booked me on the Midnight Jamboree, which was after it. But, you know, that was just like incredible to be able to go, you know, stand on the same wood that old Hank stood on. Was, you know, they cut that out and put it there, you know.
Amazing.
And, you know, I mean, from the Ryman, excuse me, and they, I wasn't at the Ryman. I was at the one out in Opryland or whatever, you know, at that time. But I, you know, to me, I felt, you know, like I was very nervous, I grant you, because, I mean, face it, it's a live show. But, you know, I really felt at home there. I mean, I felt like I'd arrived, you know, finally gotten to the point where, you know, I mean, I got there too late, you know, basically, because by that time, guys like Hank Snow and Roy Acuff were dying off, you know?
Yeah.
And basically nobody wanted that style.
Right. I
but
know.
I greatly, you know, as much as I have some animosity towards some of the things in Nashville that happened, I have a lot of great memories there too, you know?
Yeah, you do.
I would love to play the Opry again, but also, I don't know, you know, I'll be honest with you, you know, I'm not, I don't know. I mean, I just like to be out doing more concerts, I'll be honest with you. And
that's
what
awesome.
I like.
Beautiful.
I don't care where they are, you know, as long as people are enjoying it.
Oh, exactly. Now, over the years, you've played with quite a few people. Is there anybody out there still that's alive or maybe has passed that you wanted to play with, really wanted to play with, next to or with?
Well, you know, I got to play with Jesse McReynolds, and I mean, you know, on his radio show, which was,
yes.
And I got to be like one of the regulars, so to speak, on there, you know, like, because I happen to live within, I don't know, 20, 30 miles from his show. Anyway, but, you know, and they like what I did, and I appreciate that greatly, because, like, see, you know, no matter what has happened in my career, when I look at these people like Jesse and, you know, Roy Acuff, I got to play with Roy and Smoky Mountain Boys, you know, on the Ernest Tubb Jamboree, and, you know, the comments and the things that they've said, to me, they're the people that knew really what they're talking about. You know, don't get me wrong, you know, I've had a lot of write-ups and stuff from people, and I appreciate them, believe me. Every write-up, you know, is just spell the name right, you know?
Right.
But you know, some of these write-ups I've had, you can tell that they don't really know what they're talking about. They just throw out these ideas that, you know, whatever. But those guys, those endorsements to me are, you know, like, that's what keeps me going, because I know that they knew the difference.
Right.
You know, and, you know, that's the difference, you know, so, like, they're, you know, Hank Snow having me do that, you know, to me, that's where it's all about, you know.
That's it.
And,
that is it.
You know, and the head of the National Traditional Country Music Association, Bob Everhart, who passed away about a year or so ago. Just God bless his heart.
Yeah, bless his heart.
He made a point on one of my reviews saying that my music is where country music probably would have gone if it was given the right, means to do that. Okay, which to me, guys like
statement.
those are the ones that really know what they're talking about.
Yes. That's a great statement.
Some of these reviewers do know what they've been talking about, the history of it, okay?
Right.
So it's not all of them, but I'm saying a lot of them are limited, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, their information's limited, yes.
Yeah, their knowledge only goes back so many years, and they can't really understand exactly what, how to...
Right, where we're at. Yeah, exactly.
But they're kind and they're good, I mean, most of them. I mean, every artist gets a negative review here and there. I mean, it's just part of it. You just got to blow them off, You can't let that destroy your...
No. And some of the negative reviews turn out to be beneficial. Unfortunately.
Well, sometimes they're personal attacks too.
Yes, they are.
Somebody might just not like you as a person,
and
they bleed it into what they're saying, and it's kind of sad. But
that's their problem.
But I mean, overall, I've had. I usually get like an album. I'll get one person that says something negative about it or whatever, But then you get like the 15 others or 20 others that are really positive. So what are you going to do? The irony of it is human nature is you'll focus on the one negative one. Right. That's just human nature, but whatever.
Anybody gives you any negativity, you send them my way, okay? And I will take care of them.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that.
That's right, Big Al takes care of that stuff. We don't deal with that. Now, let's get to a little bit of the music. I want to talk about some of your songs here. Woo! So, all right. Now, I got a couple songs I want to talk about, but when I was listening to some of the music, I noticed I heard a little yodeling going on.
Yeah, well, Jimmy Rogers was the father of country music, and
yes.
I really admired his work. I mean, him and Hank Williams, played a lot of country blues,
Mm-hmm.
and that yodeling is not. I mean, it might have its roots in Swiss yodeling, but that style of yodeling is really built on a Mississippi Delta falsetto kind of note that's thrown in there that has changed that yodel. It's not really a Swiss yodel particularly. It's a blues kind of yodel.
It is.
That's why they called the Jimmy's records the Blue Yodels. They were blues yodels.
Yeah, that's what
Hank took it the next step, And I mean, I gotta be honest with you. That has got me on the Grand Ole Opry doing that. I mean, that's what Hank Snow, I mean, he loved the blues yodels, the Jimmy Rogers and stuff.
I loved it.
So I kind of continue it in my records, here and there. I don't do it like Jimmy did in every song.
Right.
Exactly. But I stick them in here and there because, it's part of the tradition, That's what I mean. Now, one of the things, back in the 90s, talking about bad reviews, I got one review that said that I wanted to be a Jimmy, kind of keep Jimmy, be like I don't want to say imitator of Jimmy Rogers, but, something, I forget the exact wording, but it really bummed me out, that's like saying, like that Bob Dylan wanted to be Woody Guthrie. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, right.
He took a lot from Woody. I mean,
yeah,
and then he made Bob Dylan, see? And that's kind of what I always wanted. I mean, taking another step.
Right,
now, every yodel that I do in my own songs can never be found on Jimmy Rogers records, and believe me, I listened to enough of them.
Right,
I used short of the New Blue Yodel, which was a direct tribute to Jimmy Rogers. My yodels, I make my own yodel up, and they don't come from any of Jimmy's songs. If you listen to them and you really know yodeling, you'll know that that they're unique in themselves. You feel that? But it is a carryover of that tradition.
I love it. I love it.
I hope that answers your question.
It does. It does. I love it. So we're at 45 minutes already. I want to tell everybody.
Really?
Yeah, 45 minutes. Thank you, Mark. Everybody in podcast land, push the button for Mark Brine on all your contraptions that you listen to music on, whether it's Spotify, Amazon Music, blah, blah, blah. I can't list them all. I'm not going to even try. But you got to check Mark Brine out. And if you can find him out and about, please check him out and get some swag and stuff like that. A little more before the machine blows up, Mark, we're going to talk. I got 2 songs I want to touch on real quick. First one, Little Buddy. Kind of sad song there. You made me almost tear up.
Well, that Hank Snow wrote that one, you know.
Yeah.
For a lot of time, for many years, people thought Bob Dylan wrote it because he had written it down on paper, and they assumed that he wrote it. But no, it's a Hank Snow song, and it's a maudlin song. I mean, really, but
it is.
I always loved it because I always felt that Hank was writing about his childhood. There, he had a rough childhood, and I always felt that that was like right out of his soul, and I sensed that, you know.
Yeah, I did too. And then the next one is your new single, Your World Squirrel.
I wrote that originally for Little Jimmy Dickens, so to be honest with you.
Did you really? All right.
First. Yeah, I mean, you know, Jimmy had those songs like May the Bird of Paradise Fly Up Your Nose and you know, Take a Old Cold Tater and Wait and all that. You know, they were a little bit comical, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I did with that. Now, it does have a serious statement in it, but so did the other ones. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, Cold Tater, for example. I mean, it talks about poverty, but enjoying what you have. You know,
exactly.
There's an underlying message there.
Right.
And there's an underlying message in that. All I did was add a couple of yodels to that one because you know, I don't know. I just thought that it would. You know, it's you know, when you do a song with just like guitar and voice, it's good to have a third element in there. It's kind of like a triangle, you know. I know it sounds crazy, but, you know, Dylan had the harmonica, you know. I
mean, he did.
Jimmy Rogers had the blue yodels, you know, the yodels in between, you know.
Exactly.
So when you're going to do a song with just the guitar and voice, I just always say, you know, you got to have that. It's good. You don't gotta, but if you add that third dimension, there's something magical about it. That's why I put it in there.
That's great. That's great.
No other reason than that, because it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the song.
Right.
But it adds that third dimension, which
to the song, right.
is the triangle, you know.
That's great. Oh, well, Mark, we're at 47 minutes. I hate to see the machine blow up and start smoking, so I think we're going to call it quits right about now, but I got to do another show with you, my friend. We got lots more to talk about, all right, my friend?
Well, I would love to do that, so, you know, I mean, we can have part 2 whenever you want, Big Al.
Well, thank you for joining me today, Mark Brine. Everybody check out Mark Brine on the platforms, wherever you are, all over the world. Check him out. Amazing music. Amazing. And he's been through decades of the greatest music on the world, the country world, and the folk. Yes, indeed. You're amazing, Mark. Keep doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you, sir. I greatly appreciate it. And if you would, please, I want to share this on Facebook, so send me a link or something that I can put it to my friends out there, okay?
You got it. I'll send it to you in about 5 minutes. You got it?
All righty, then. Let's talk again down the line. In the meantime, thank you very much for having me. It was great talking with you, okay?
Thank you, Mark, so much for coming on the No Cover TV podcast, my friend. I will talk to you very soon. We are out of here. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.